think we are live now. So, hello everybody. Bonsoir, as our guest is French speaking. I'm very happy to welcome you on WJUG number 280. That's a lot of numbers. This time, as all the last year, online. First time in year 2021. So we are starting with a great guest, Nicolas Frankel, with his presentation on securing the JVM, neither for fun nor for profit, but do you have a choice? I'm very intrigued by this, only by this title, so I'm very happy to and very eager to listen to this presentation. First, as always, start with technical health check. If you can hear us, please make some noise on the chat. We'll know that everything's fine. If there is any problems with audio or video, please let us know. We'll try to solve it as soon as possible.
So we want to say thank you to our long-term partners, which are JetBrains, who are providing our licenses for the products. We also want to say thank you to Decepto, which are providing books for our community, and StatsIT, which are providing free courses for our community also.
Exactly. So please be active. Nicola will be having some questions for you. Please try to answer them and just be active on our chat. Now we have a lot of prizes to reward you for this activity. So it is what we are doing here. It's for you guys. So please be active, and we'll reward you for that activity. If you have any ideas for us, what to do, how can we expand our activity, please contact us. At the end, I'll show a page with all of our social pages. And if you have any idea for a presentation, please also contact us. If there is only a small thing that you just want to try it out, but you don't have anything special in mind, please contact us as well. We'll try to help you with just producing this presentation. As I said, this is all of our social media. Try to reach us there. If you want to contact us, we'll try to go back to you as soon as possible. All right, I think that's all from us. So without further ado, thank you very much, Nicola, for being here tonight. And the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, you guys. So hi, everybody. Thanks to be here for this talk about how you can secure the JVM. At any point, if you've got questions, comments, whatever, just write them down in chat. For me, it's super hard. The last year was super hard because I'm always talking to my screen. I like interaction, so as soon as I can get interaction, it's really nice. I'm Nicolas Frankel. I've been a developer for close to 2 decades, and since 2 years, I'm a developer advocate. I work for a company called Hazelcast, so if you are Java developers, I assume that you have heard about Hazelcast. In general, people know us because of our in-memory data grid, and you can think about an in-memory data grid as data structure that is not bound within a single JVM, but you can scale it, and you can replicate it or shard it across several nodes in a cluster. There is another product that might be more confidential, but I encourage you to have a look, which is Jets, and we do stream processing, also in memory, also distributed. But tonight, I won't talk about any of this. Tonight, I will just ask you the first question. Actually, it's the following here. I have this code, and so I have a class foo, and of course, this class foo has a string as a attribute that is private, so it should be hidden. And I do these codes, and please just let me know in the chat what should happen. What do you expect to happen, and what should happen? So I will wait a couple of seconds, and I'm waiting in the chat for something to be written. And please give me feedback, give me something. Take risks, be bold. Just let me know that I'm not talking to somebody, not just the void. Okay, I will count to 3, 2, 1. Okay, nobody answered, so I will have to run the code. And if I run the code, well, something that should have remained inaccessible is actually accessible. So even though the attribute is private, we can access it by using reflection. That's interesting. String will be printed. It should throw an exception in line 10. Yeah, that's interesting. No, it doesn't throw an exception in line 10. Sometime it might throw an exception at line 11, but otherwise, no. You have an exception at runtime if you do something like this, actually. So you should always set the field accessible. So the exception, if there is one, is yes, if you forget this line is mandatory. And I believe that reflection is pretty popular among Java developers. And even if you don't use it, a lot of the frameworks that you actually use are using it. Hibernate, GPA, whatever. Languages are using it. Groovy, for example. And yeah, Spring is generally very infamous to use the reflection trick. But it doesn't stop there. Actually, we can do much better. And here there is another class that is a bit harder. So I have a hoops again. And here I also learned something recently. So here I need you to tell me what it does. And yes, there is some delay, so I will wait a bit. But no more than 20 seconds. Oh, it's 30 seconds, so it's harder. So here I create a class. I create an object of class bar. I get the class of class bar, which basically is a bar class. I get the declared field, which is here. So we already saw that it's possible. And here I get the fields of this class. And again, I do this set accessible magic. And I say now that the type is not an int anymore, it's a string. And then I set this field that is now of type string to a string. And I get it and I print it. So now the question is, what happens? What should happen? What will happen? And here the answer is much more involved than expected. So please let me know if you have anything. Oh yeah, I see myself on YouTube. It's super slow. So folks, what do you think will happen here? I can do some, I don't know any jokes meanwhile, so I cannot tell you any jokes. Some class cost exception. So no, there won't be any class cost exception. There can be some exception, but it depends. So I did this last talk, like I think 2 years ago. It's not in my most popular talks anymore, but because a friend of mine told me that, yeah, I should do this talk at the WJUG, so I do it. But it's good because then I updated it and I checked. And so the answer is it depends. It depends on the JDK. So in general, before I did this talk with JDK 8. And when you run it, you actually get the field and get the value of the field, which now is a string. No, the dark log won't come actually. But yeah, so if you have like been taught to believe that Java is a strongly typed language and it's statically typed, and well, it's not. You can actually do some black magic that change the type of classes of attributes at runtime. That's very fun, right? So this is with JDK 8. With JDK 11, it tells you, sorry, we cannot do that. It's not possible. It's illegal arguments. And at line 15, so it's a bit stronger. And in 15, it doesn't exist anymore. So the way that you have attributes, the types of attributes is not accessible in JDK 15. So the answer is it depends, but in JDK 8 you can still do some crazy stuff. And as I mentioned, here it's very technical, it's very deep, but you can do like anything. The JVM allows you to do network calls or to compile code on the fly or to execute code. I mean, you can do a lot of pretty crazy stuff. And of course, you will tell me that there are safeguards. The fact that there are static analyzers can help. I might disagree with that. Static analyzer might be somewhat on very simple stuff. They are good. On this kind of things, they are not so great. So unless you configure them to say that, hey, we will check for this API call, which might be legit in some use case, like getting reflection, it's legit. Spring does it a lot. So it must be very contextual. Likewise, bytecode analyzers, they don't help that much because you need to have much more context. You might tell me, hey, code reviews, they help. And the question, how is it possible a class should have specific layouts in memory? I didn't check, to be honest. As I mentioned, I just updated this talk. I saw that it was dependent on the JDK that ran the code, but I didn't check further. So let me get back to the safe words. Code reviews. Code reviews are good if every reviewer is of good faith. And as soon as you've got a code review which involves like a bad actor and the reviewer is also not so good, then there might be some bad stuff happening in the code afterwards. Or, you know, these like 100 lines of code, which looks good to me because, well, it's not possible to review 100 or 200 lines of code. Security teams might also be a safeguard. Unfortunately, my experience has taught me that there are two kinds of security teams. The first kind of security team is very, let's say, I hope there is no one like working in security right now. The first kind of security team that I've experienced is that they are checkbox oriented. They are all about compliance. They are not, let's say, not always good at security, but they are good at making sure that all checkboxes are checked. And yes, they will like ask you, force you to check the boxes, saying, hey, yeah, my code has been reviewed, but they don't help that much. And there is another kind of security team. The guys are really like skilled, and they can probably check this kind of stuff, but because they are so skilled and because there is probably so much code being written in your organization, they don't have time to do it. So yeah, choose your poison. And I have a fun use case for that. Let me tell you about steganography. Perhaps you've heard about steganography because some teacher in high school or perhaps in university did some like workshop about steganography. And steganography the concept is very simple. You are just like concealing data inside of data. And it can be on one side, like any kind of data, and on the other side, any kind of data. One of the easiest kind of steganography, you have a nice, let's say, poem, and then the message is if you pick the first letter of each line, or it doesn't work only with poems. But you can also conceal a file in, let's say, an image, or you can conceal an image in a video or anything. So let me show you how it works. And let's do some demo. So here, I have taken from the internet a Steganography class because it does some like image encoding that I don't want to deal with, and it was already existing. So if you want the reference, you can see it here. It's quite old. And now I have these hide codes. And what it does is actually I will be having like this kitten, and you see it's a very harmless kitten. So you don't care about this kitten. It's nice, it's cute. You are not worried. And let's say that this message inside is like not only text, it's actually code that I can execute. So here I can like hide the code inside the kitten image, and it produces another kitten image, sorry. So I will like here, this is the same kitten. It's still harmless, it's still super cute, and you don't see it, but there is text hidden inside. And so I just need to have specific codes that can access the Steganography class. And what I will be doing is I will be extracting the text, which in that case is code. And then I will compile the source code because I'm very happy that I'm using Java. Java allows you to do a lot of stuff. And you can compile code at runtime. And of course, you can run code at runtime. So now if I run this hidden code, it tells me hello Warszawa. And of course, you can change the message. You will see that it's still, I mean, it's running. It's not just to fool you. Here I will hide the codes. And here I will run the hidden codes. So that is, like, I believe, a very fun thing to do. And we can do better. Now imagine that I am a bad guy. Of course, you can see it. I'm a very nice guy. But imagine I am a bad guy. What I could do, I could publish a new image processing library on Maven Central that really does image processing. And because it's very, it would offer all features that everybody wants. It would be very, very used. But inside, I will hide this steganographic feature. And then I would just continue distributing it all over the world. And then you would add the library to your POM. And then I, as a consultant, or perhaps I would pay people, or perhaps people would pay me, people who work at your company, they will just like commit and deploy images with embedded codes. And then you would call the library and do your processing as you would expect. And then it would additionally run the steganography stuff, decodes the code in the image, and run the code in production. And depending if you are in banking or if you, I mean, I could do a lot of really bad stuff, really, really bad. So is this crazy? I'm not sure. Like 2 years ago, I think it happened in the Node.js ecosystem. What happened is that somebody had a successful library, and he told, okay, guys, I have enough. I cannot contribute anymore to this library. This is open source. Is there anybody who wants to maintain this library? And somebody stepped in. And so the first committer was actually of good faith, but the new maintainer was not of good faith, and basically he infected this library, this existing very widespread library, with a crypto miner, which was not so bad, but could have been worse. And perhaps you can tell me, yeah, but Nicolas, we are Java developers. We are not JavaScript developers. Now, time to change my password. Great. I mean, we are so much better than that. Because why? I mean, do you really think about the library that you are using? Did you check the source codes of your dependencies if you are a Maven or a Gradle user? Did you submit them to some security team? I'm not sure. The good thing is that the sources, they are available. You can do that, but you probably don't. And to be honest, I never did before. And let's say that you do it, that you submit the sources of the library, of all the libraries you are using, to some like security team, or perhaps you do it yourself. What guarantees you that the binary that you are embedding in your application is the one that is generated by the sources that you reviewed? Nothing. There is no guarantee at all. The only thing that you can do is just that you need to review the sources and you need to rebuild from source. And I guess nobody does it. So just pushing the thing aside and saying, hey, this is a problem in the Node.js ecosystem, it's not right. It's actually, it can happen now. Your application can be already compromised because of that. And I don't know if you remember the applets. I mean, I'm quite old now. And can we compile code on runtime on USJDK? Yes, you can. So I remember the applets, and the applets were actually the way that actually you could like get code from the internet, so very, very unsafe, and execute it on your machine, locally on your machine. I mean, that was a huge security risk. And the idea is that, yes, it was dangerous, but we would run these applets in a sandbox, so with no permission at all, no permission to access the file system, no permission to do anything. Of course, you could still allow it. They will ask, hey, can I access the file system? But at least you would see some warning. But the idea was to run into this sandbox. And so that means that the JVM is able to run into modes, the standard mode that everybody uses, which you can call the gold mode, can do anything, or through a sandbox mode. And this sandbox mode is actually, you can enable it through a security manager. And it's really like very simple to activate the security manager. It's just a Java property away, -d java.security.manager. That's the only thing that you need to activate the security manager. There is another way, which is you make a system call. You call system.setSecurityManager, and you pass the security manager that you want. But between the time that you start the application and the line of code that executes this, there could be some already bad thing like happening. So always try to use this flag. So why don't we use the security manager? Well, it's a lot of trouble. So the first thing is the implementation, where the files are located, the change between Java 8 and before and Java 9 and after. So the first thing is, if you look at, there is a folder in your JDK called conf/security, Java security. And this one points to a policy, conf/security/Java policy. And these policy files, you can set it in 2 different ways. And this is, again, there is a trap. You can use the double equal sign, or you can use single equal sign. If you use the double equal sign, that means that you won't use the policy file of your GRE, or even better, you will replace the one from the GRE with my policy. So if somebody already compromised the default policy file of the GRE, you don't care. Now, if you use a single equal sign, you will have the default permissions from the default policy file plus the ones that you've set yourself. Again, if the default one is compromised, then not great. And perhaps you know, if you have been, let's say, interested in security, that the principle of least privilege. So when you are given permissions, you are given just enough permission to do your work, but no more. And it's the reason why, in general, when you go on the internet and somebody uses a PHP application and it says, oh, I cannot run it, then there is always somebody else who say, hey, use chmod 777 and everything will work. Yes, everything will work, but it's the opposite of the principle of least privilege. So yeah, PHP for the win. And on Java 9 or above, the permissions, there are very few. They can listen on ports and read a few system properties, not all of them, not all of them. But the good thing is that the permissions, they are enforced in the JDK. So if you check the accessible object, for example, class, and the method setAccessible that you need to call in order to access accessible, like to access a reflection, you will see they will call system.getSecurityManager. And then if it's not null, you will check the permissions with the security manager. So it's in the code of the JDK or the GRE. So you can be sure about this. And there are a lot of permissions. The most fun of all, of course, is the all permission. So you don't need to be fine-grained. You just say, hey, I want all permissions. So you activate the security manager and you get all permissions, so which defeats the purpose. That's what I thought, but actually there is a very good reason for this all permission. But there is also a permission to read a property, because that could be dangerous. I mean, accessing some properties, reading some property might be dangerous. Writing properties, of course, would be dangerous. Like accessing files could be dangerous. Reflection everything could be dangerous. So you've got permission for everything that is not something that you would easily do. And of course, you can create your own. Oh yes, something very funny, Awt permission. And so you are running Java in production probably, and let's say that you are not using glink, so probably you are using the whole JDK and you are not using modules, or perhaps let's say 5% of you are using modules. And so everybody is having these Awt permissions, and these Awt permissions allows you to access the clipboard, So if you do any copy-paste of passwords in production, and there is somebody that actually has access, or as I showed before, as executed code in some image, it can send the passwords wherever it wants. Not great. And this is a structure of a policy file. So it's a very simplified structure. You can add more stuff. You can add the fact that it's executable by a specific user. You can say that you want the jar to be signed. There is a lot of different stuff. Here, I'm just focusing on the permissions themselves. So you would say, hey, I grant this jar this kind of permission. And they're always like this, permission. So this is a keyword. The name of the permission, java.util.file permission, and possible arguments. And if you have multiple arguments, they are separated by a comma. So that seems to be super easy, right? So I just want to do a demo to show you how easy or not it is to create a policy file. I have another application. I have the Spring Pet Clinic. I didn't update it completely. It's still a bit old, but here we can run the Spring Pet Clinic. And I guess you know the Spring Pet Clinic. And now I can go on here and check that everything works. So you've got nice pets, a little doggy, a little cat. You can find their owners. Like here, you've got all owners of pets. You've got veterinarians, and you've got some error endpoints because you want to check that any exception has been caught. There is a question: how does the permission system plays with reflection-based frameworks? Which permission can be safely turned off? And that's the point. That's a very good question. So you want the principle of least privilege. So you don't start from everything and you remove permissions. You just start from nothing and you add permissions. So the idea is to start from nothing. So that's very good. It gives me a good transition. Yes, so this is the exception because, as I mentioned, there is an endpoint that throws an exception. So the idea is to start from a very, very small file, and I must have it here, JVM policy. And I will run the application with here, jar application, JVM policy, with the security manager activated and pointing to this policy file with, remember, 2 equal signs, because I want to replace the default one. Perhaps default is not good. So here I will start this application with JVM policy, and of course I'm expecting to have an exception, which is good. Tells me, hey, access denied. You should have this Java util property permission with these parameters. So let's add it then. Permission, and here Java util.permission. And here Java protocol handler packages. And here we need to add a comma. I always forget. So now this one has been added. And let's start it again. Now I have a new one. It tells me that there is still this property permission. It's still the same property, but now I need write access. So I will just copy this line. And I will write. There is another option, is you can, if you have the same permission with multiple parameters, you can just say write here. Oh, I've got a new one. I've got a runtime permission. So just tell me, how long do we have? Do we have a couple of hours, perhaps one day? Because
days, months, whatever you need.
Okay. So folks, I will be there all night. You will be there all night, because if I do this manual way, it's going to run for ages. like really ages. I can show you the final files afterward. You will see that yes, that was not a great idea to do it manually. So I can go on and on, and that's the issue. That's the issue with policy files. That's the problem with using the concept of least privilege. Is it takes super long. It takes super long to do that. So if I want to have the smallest permission files possible, it's going to take ages. So I won't do that manually. Now remember, I told you about all permissions. And why do we need all permissions? That's pretty stupid. We enable the security manager and then we say all permissions. What the fuck? Sorry, it's recorded. I shouldn't say what the fuck. I should say what the hell or what the heck or, well, something in Polish. But I won't. So here what I will be doing, I will enable the security manager. I will point to a policy file with all permission, but additionally, I will add the logging access. So here I can show you. I have this, where is it? All policy, only all permission. And so now I have access to everything, but during development, that is not an issue. And it writes, it logs everything. And you can see all permissions that I need. And it has started. I'm happy about that. But now I can like clear all, and I go here and just accessing it, I've got a lot of new permissions. So starting the application is only half of the work, because when you actually run the application, you've got new permissions. And if I remove them, and let's say here, for example, I will probably require new permissions. And so now everything has been set. I just need to get, all those logs. I need to like copy them in another file. I need to format them. I need to deduplicate them. I need to do also some black magic because there is some black magic involved. And afterwards, finally, I can have my final policy file. And as you can see, if I had done that manually, it would have been a bit longer. So here I have a break. This is like 400 something lines. It's just for starting the application. And then I have only about 80 for running the application. And now I can start the application. And it works amazingly. I show you that how I launched it, because of course I could always be like fooling you. I have enabled the security manager. I have two double equal sign, and I'm pointing to final.policy. And see, there is nothing in the log that tells me that I missed a permission. Now, if I go here, we can check. I forgot a permission. But otherwise, it seems to be working. I forgot a permission. Forgot perhaps two permissions. So those are M-beans, so I don't care that much. Here, I know that I will be probably missing permissions at some point. And veterinarians and error. So I can access all my screens. Here it's the exception because I clicked on the exception endpoints, so that's not really something bad. Here I missed a permission. Base model and bean. So of course, if you disable GMX, you will have less permissions to give. There are a couple of not so fun stuff. So I don't know why, for example, I missed those when I created the file, but I can check afterwards. There are a couple of fun stuff. The first fun stuff is if you don't be careful, if you are not careful. For example, here I open the quotes, but the permission itself has a quote in it. So I need to escape it. So if at some point it tells you that you don't have the permission and it was the first permission that you have set, that's probably because the file format is wrong. But it won't tell you, of course, it would be too easy. So here, not great. You need to escape the quotes that are inside the name of the permissions. Another fun stuff. Here, Tomcat and Spring Boot will create folders and a complete file system in one of your file systems. And this is var/folders. It will be completely randomly named. And so you cannot say, I will give this permission to access this part of the file system at a very low level, because it will be random. You need to say, okay, I will give access to anything that sits below this structure. Another way would be to be able to set a very specific location where Tomcat could create its temporary stuff. I don't know how to do it. Good. Since I'm here, you can see that here I'm using a system property, one that is accessible. So that might make for an easier deployment between development and production. Otherwise, if you have the path that is hard-coded, just like here, for example, well, you need to generate it like one file for development, one file for production. Also very fun, some ports. So here, of course, I bind to 8080, which is fine, but there is something that is chosen at random. And I don't remember which one it is, but basically it's random. So here I must tell, hey, you need to be able to accept anything on any port. Well, sorry, accept or resolve on any port. Otherwise, Spring Boot won't start. So even when I'm trying to be to have the least privilege principle, I need to have some kind of, let's say, I need to be not that least privileged because of the way the framework works. Again, if I know how to set this stuff, why does it get a random port, and how can I fix this random port to something that is fixed? Then I can put it in the permission file. Otherwise, if it's truly random, I need to give it complete access. Well, that's already a lot. And so now you understand why it's not that fun to create those polyphysi files and why they are not actually used. Because if you add a new library, well, you will probably need to add more permissions. But more importantly, if you upgrade the library, you will probably need to remove permissions, because perhaps the permissions, the least privileged permission that you gave before, they are now too high for the new library. At some point, I thought, but perhaps each library could give the set of permission that they require. But the problem is that perhaps the library gives you that many features, and you are using only this feature. And in that case, you will only want these permissions, because the rest is just an additional attack surface. So I still believe that now I showed you how you can do it. You can automate it. So the scrapping of the log and everything, and it's up to you now to choose between the blue pill and the right pill. You can pretend that this talk never existed, that you never heard anything, that tomorrow you will go to work, and that your system will be as secure as the day before, which is true, or as unsecure as the day before, which is also true. Because right now in your production system, you have unsecured JVMs. In my 18 years of consultancy that I did before I was developer advocate, I've never seen any production engineer securing the JVM. Nobody. The only security manager that I know of is in Elasticsearch. They are very, very careful about security. But it's not through the property -d security java.security.manager, it's through a system call inside their software. So the idea is, yes, you can forget everything and you can sleep and everything will be fine. Or you can start being worried. Because perhaps you are a good person, but perhaps there is a person inside this call who is not that good a person. And this talk gave them some idea that perhaps they could do that through steganography or through anything. So you must be very, very aware, especially if you are if you care a bit about security, that JVM can do anything and it might do anything in production, even things that you didn't care about and you didn't want, and they might hurt your system. So thanks for your attention. You can read my blog where I publish weekly posts on Sunday evening. You can follow me on Twitter. You can find the code, so both the Spring Pet Clinic and the OOPS and the Steganography stuff on GitHub. And I wrote a couple of articles that tackle this subject a few years already. So it's also about jar signing and stuff like that. And I didn't talk about Hazelcast, but if you are interested in about knowing more about Hazelcast, please join our Slack. We have a nice community. Now there might be time for some questions, so I will wait 30 seconds until this gets broadcasted to YouTube. And meanwhile, I will just drink a bit because I've talked a lot. So, fire questions, please. So there is a question, is there available policy files for Spring Boot and other libraries? And that's, I already answered. You don't want a generic policy file. You want to have the smallest policy file possible. And in that case, you need to customize it yourself.
Yeah, I dropped myself. Yeah.
How to find the balance between trusting in everything and nothing? I can imagine this trial and error method of finding all required permission in production. That's the reason why I showed you something where actually you can do it in an automated way. You shouldn't do it manually, of course. What you should do, well, what you could do, and if something bad happens, I will tell everybody that I showed you how to do it and you didn't listen. No, what you can do is actually you can use the trick that I've showed. So you enable the old permission, you enable the logging, and then probably you have automated tests that goes everywhere in your application that tests everything. So if you can create a bot that will scrap the logs and do the thing that I did for you, and basically deduplicate it and genericize it and blah, 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 and create the custom policy file for you. Is there any parser to parse logs and create policy files? It's quite easy. Actually, I did it manually, but you can see here. So that's something that I did. If I started with all policy and logging, stop, I have enough. So here, let's take something that might be a bit more, let's do it for you. Because you are here, I will do it for you. So this is what I did. I did new with clipboard. I did text. Where is it? Process duplicate lines, delete duplicate lines. And now you can see that you have accessor loads. So here I can remove, I can just get the lines that have access allowed. So I will do edit. Again, I'm doing that with my text editing processor, but you can do it in an automated way. And I will process the lines that contain this. And here I will copy it to a new document. So now I only have the access. And now I can change that. And I will write permission and here. And I will replace all. Then what I need to do is here at the end, I will replace this with quotes and column, replace all. Then I do permission and quote what. This is exactly what I did before, so I'm pretty good now. Permission what, replace all. And now I just need to replace this and add comma in between. Replace all, and that's it. That's all I had to do. And this is how I created the file just before. Afterwards, you need to replace, we can sort them, you can do some nice stuff, but now it's a working one. Can we lower the word permission-wise in containerized environment, or the level of threat is similar? That's a very good question. I'm not a security expert, but what you need to, nice icon, by the way, super nice image of you. What you need to think about is your, let's say, level of acceptance of security of threats. Like, I'm always taking like two stupid examples. If you run in banking, or if you run Candy Crush. If you run in a bank, if you run a JVM in a bank, you probably don't want to take as many risks as Candy Crush. But the worst that can happen with Candy Crush, perhaps the guy gets some more gems, or perhaps there is a denial of service attack. Now, in a bank, you can actually get funds, you can get money, you can wreak havoc with the wealth of people. And I'm not talking about surgery boats or boats that run in the plane, this kind of really like stuff that touch the human life. And if you also are interested in security, the idea is to secure all the chain of the running software and not say, oh, we secured this one, so it's fine. For example, yes, probably you are using Docker and you say, oh, but I'm running inside Docker, so everything is good. Well, just remember that by using Docker, you are using the same kernel, and it's just the OS that makes you believe that you are running completely standalone. Also, I don't know about your Docker images, but a lot of Docker images, they contain vulnerabilities. And what about your Docker image? Does it run as root? Does it as a user? I mean, in my demo, I never use users, and that's probably not a good example. But I guess if you are in development, I don't know. So saying, hey, I'm very, very careful about this one, so I can forget the rest, I think it's not super wise, and you should be very careful. And other questions?
I think that one was unanswered yet.
How to know which permission should we allow? After 200 permission added, I think I would add. No, that's the thing. That's the real thing. Now that you have your policy file, now imagine you have your application. I tell you, hey, is there somebody like crazy about it? You have no clue. You need to write to read the whole application. You need to read the whole libraries. You need to believe that the sources of the libraries, they are completely synchronized with the binaries. Now, this policy file, you can review it. You can review it. You can have it under source control, and you can say, hey, this one. Why? Perhaps it's for legit reasons, like just remove it and checks what does it do. But at least you have a policy file that is under review, that is under source control. You can check who has access to it, who did changes to it, and at least it's in the open. It's just Like, we don't know, we don't care. Now you know, and you can care about it. Can policy file can save us before Java deserialization attacks with some nasty bytecodes? Well, that's the issue. Probably not. Depends on what the bytecode does. But the issue with policy files, it's not like it's not a magical recipe. Basically, the policy file does is, yes, this application can do that, and this application cannot do that. But if the attack uses some permission that were already allowed for some legit reasons, then of course it doesn't work. So again, security, it's a concern for like the whole chain, and because you have a policy file doesn't solve everything. It just solves the fact that you are using the JVM, which can do everything, and you let it run like completely free. Are there more questions? I will drink meanwhile.
Think you have the last opportunity to ask something to Nicolas, but I believe that's everything for now.
If you are too shy, or if you think about questions that you didn't think now, just ping me on Twitter. And of course, you can still follow me, but ping me on Twitter or come to our Slack and ask me questions. I will try to answer them. I'm not saying I will answer them because, yeah, I also have a job like everybody does, but I will do my best.
All right. Thank you very much for being here tonight with us for this eye-opening. Okay, there is last question, so I'll show it right now.
No, not with the default security manager. So I showed you the default security manager. Default security manager, just read the policy file. You can implement your own security manager for whatever reasons, which I believe you shouldn't do in any case. But the default security manager reads the policy file, and it has the policy files, and you cannot do anything against it.
Okay, I believe that might be everything. So once again, thank you very much, Nicolas, for being here tonight with us. I want to thank you very much for being here to all of our attendees, and I will like to promote three of you, Mr. Kitka, Michał Rowicki, and Piotrek Fus. Please drop us an email to leaders@warszawa.jug.pl. We have some rewards for you, probably some JetBrains licenses or something like that. Adam, I think you are a bit late, but the recording is on our YouTube. So yeah, if you have if you want to answer the last question here from Łukasz, please do. But if not,
there is a last question that I want to answer.
Yep.
Is there a performance penalty for using Sec Manager? And actually, yes, there is. I mean, nothing is free, but as I showed you, it's in the code. So this is just this one. And if you want to check further, you can like do the performance testing. Now, I always answer in the bit controversial way. And actually, it's less controversial now. I don't want to be so antagonistic because we are not face-to-face. It's more fun when we are in the same room, because you can see that I'm joking. The idea of performance is always very funny as a counter-argument or monitoring or whatever. The idea is, I mean, if I translate it, is it better to go very, very, very fast, blindfolded, or to be a bit less fast, but you know where you are driving? So of course, if it slows down you to half your performance, you probably don't want it. But as I mentioned, it's baked into the GDK. Probably it's like negligible comparing to all the rest. So I believe if you are at this level of issue, then you are already very, very advanced.
So that was the last question. If there will be any more questions, please send it over to Nicolas directly by Twitter, as he already mentions. So for the last time, thank you very much for being with us, for accepting our invitation, for presenting this, as I mentioned, eyes-opening presentation, because we'll have something to think about for a few days, at least, I believe. And thank you very much, everybody, for being with us tonight. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. See you next time, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for invite and thanks for your time. I really appreciated the engagement, the questions, and I hope that next time I will be able to travel on site and we will have some nice pivot and enjoy it together.
Yeah, I hope that we'll not stop on pivot, but we go to vodka.
Yeah, I don't drink beer actually. I don't drink wine either.
Only wine.
But we will find something.
Okay, so come over and we'll discuss it.